Hey everybody, I'm Motyl. I used to work at Meta, and I remember one Sunday, I got a bunch of messages linking me to clips from 60 Minutes, and I see Frances Haugen's face talking about my research. I'm like, oh, this is a problem. And when I was still working at Meta, I was like, oh, all right, well, this is there are going to be some ramifications there, and I generally felt not good about it. But when folks like the Plurality Institute and the Internet Archive and all of these other groups have these wonderful events and bring us together and let us talk about research on social media, it's incredibly helpful that she disclosed, I don't know, dozens of the things that I worked on in my time there. So, I don't see any other slides coming up here, but we'll find out. So today I'll be talking about some of the work that I did on comment ranking, in particular with sensitive topics like civic and health content, and how we were able to take data and models that were built for many other purposes in service of something else completely, like basically optimizing for quality as opposed to engagement and some of the other things that we've been talking about. So I'll start by laying out some of the status quo. Some of this has already been stated by Robbie, but in case he wasn't going to say those things, I have them here too. So as we have all established, comments tend to be ranked based on engagement. Of course, there are some caveats to that, like, oh, well, there's like public figures and creators and newsworthiness and some of these other things that come into play that kind of can change that. But generally, the more engagement comments get, the higher they're ranked in the thread. And historically, we were showing 3 to 5 comments, like under each post, but that eventually changed to 3, and then 2, and then 1, and now for some topic posts, you don't see any comments in your feed. Okay, so now another element to talk about is Zuck's law, and this is the same thing that Robbie pointed out. He showed a graph. I'm just going to give you the quote from Zuck's public post on Facebook. As a piece of content gets close to that line of what is allowed, what is violating, people will engage with it more on average, even when they tell us afterward that they don't like that content. So the more problematic stuff tends to get more engagement, and oftentimes that content is like misinformation or related to politics or kind of rage bait, a lot of these kinds of things, because if you see something that challenges your identity or your values, you really want to correct it or maybe attack people or troll them or in the example that Robbie posted, maybe dox them, I guess, which is, of course, all of those things are bad. So now, recognizing that I was at a social media company, and like our systems are built on this premise that engagement is useful, and it can, like logically, it presumes the more engagement something gets, the greater quality it is, or the more value people are getting from it, which many of us probably know by now that that's not always the case. Maybe when it comes to cat videos, but maybe not so much when it comes to, say, I don't know, if you want to get a vaccine for COVID-19. Okay, now, one thing that's really nice about Facebook is that they have lots of different ways that you can engage. It's not just a like button, it's not just a heart like on Instagram, it's not, or on X now. But there are these different reactions, and those different reactions mean different things to people, and they also get different weights in the ranking model. So if you just like something, at one point it was getting 1 point, and then if you long pressed and then selected any of the other reactions, they would get something more than 1, like up to 5 points for like anger and love. But uh, when you count all of these things up, it's kind of weird. So, like, what does it mean if you have 10 angers plus 10 loves? Is that good? Is that divided? Or even if we kind of simplify it more and let's say, okay, if something has 10 angers, are all of those angers telling you the same thing? In the aftermath of the George Floyd killing, did a lot of deep diving into like trying to understand what anger was as a reaction. And some of the people that we were examining and interviewing and surveying here, they were saying, oh, well, it's showing solidarity, which is kind of a pro-social, like connective kind of a thing. And then other people were using it as kind of outrage, saying, oh, no, this is just propaganda or all other kinds of bad things. So not all of these reactions are created equally. And if we just give them points and then sum that up and say, oh, look, this comment has more points than this comment, let's boost this one, you end up with a lot of really bad comments. And if we're only showing 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 comments per post in people's feeds, you're showing people the worst of the worst in a lot of cases. So I really believe that we could do better because there's so much more data that we had, and there's a lot more context that we could add to this engagement. So as someone that's spent, I don't know, the last 20 years working on civic dialogue and constructive conversations, I thought, okay, well, comments are, and these threads under posts are not just places to react. They're places where people can engage and have conversations with each other. So I don't know if this, okay, yeah, all right, this works. So we can think of a conversation as like, oh, hi, this is a comment. I'm writing something, and then somebody can respond to that. Now you have some engagement there, and there are ways that you can kind of estimate, like, oh, is that a positive interaction? Is that a negative one? Did they call the person a 4-letter word? One of my esteemed panelists actually built a classifier that was very face valid, not very fancy, but very face valid, and it was just, did someone say F you? And that's one way to kind of establish like something is a good or bad interaction, but there are much more sophisticated ways to do that too. And that's what we tried to bring in, and that is like, okay, so if we can kind of like map the networks of comments, replies, and then how the original commenters are reacting to that replier, and map this out in kind of a more complex way. So you can imagine some of these patterns of interaction, some of these chains are more positive than or more negative. So if I post a comment saying, oh, Ravi, you're fabulous, your talk was amazing, and he might respond and say, thank you. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice, and I love react to that. But he might be like, oh no, you're being sarcastic. And I might react, oh my goodness, no, absolutely not. And that might be a more negative interaction. So we can estimate quality from these by like chaining these things together. And essentially, we took the 744 different ways that you can combine all of these comments, replies, and reactions from all of the people participating, and we wanted to see, like, okay, how do these correlate with people's self-described perception of the quality of comments? And what we found was that the chains that had someone that posted a comment, got a reply, and then they loved that comment, that was indicative of higher quality, the initial comment was higher quality. So just to speed things up, love, care, and like reactions on that reply comment, they tended to be more associated with higher quality comments, and then anger and ha-ha was generally correlated with the worst outcomes. So in other words, like, love, and care are greater than anger and ha-ha. Okay, but there's a problem, and you might have kind of gleaned this, but when it comes to sensitive topics that people care a lot about, people tend to form more homogeneous or homophilous, segregated echo chambers where you might have people on one side of the network that only see the stuff that's on their side and not the other side. And you might have lots of these positive reactions and people that agree with you engaging positively with that, but none of the diverse feedback that might say, I don't know, this is kind of questionable. So in the context of like vaccines, we saw that like in anti-vax groups, people would say something about, oh, there's 5G in this vaccine, or imagine any number of the misinformation that was being spread about vaccines, and those comments and those posts were getting lots and lots of positive engagement. So this model was actually very flawed in that context by boosting up the stuff that was getting the most engagement in these echo chambers. So we needed to find a way to account for who was engaging how. Now, if only I was at a company that had any data on its users, oh shoot, I forgot, it was Meta. We had everything. And there's a system that we built that was called World2Vec. It's kind of like Word2Vec, but way more relevant. Instead of like plotting words against words, you're plotting behaviors against behaviors. And essentially, it's a system that's used to identify what people are interested in, what people care about, probably their politics, their language, their region, all of these things. And it was built for other purposes, but we can also use this to learn about the diversity of people engaging by doing some like a really kind of crazy linear algebra to estimate how similar or different people are that are engaging with those comments. And we calculate a score for every comment based on the engagement patterns multiplied by how diverse the people engaging with those comments were. And then we ran an experiment where we were boosting positive engagement with high diversity of the engagers, and then demoted stuff that was from highly diverse audiences, but very negative overall. And what we found was that the diverse engagement predicted diverse negative engagement predicted much higher likelihood of the content being reported, being violating, and then when we boosted the positive stuff, we were finding that it increased views on non-hateful comments, decreased views on bullying comments, increased comment views overall, and we did some other work aggregating this up to a user level, and the effects there were even more profound, but I'm running out of time, so I'm happy to share these slides, but it was very effective, and we launched this into a number of different products. So as requested, what we know and don't know, one is that, and this might sound like a hot take, but engagement-based ranking isn't always terrible. You just can't do dumb engagement-based ranking. It has to be enhanced. It has to be enriched and contextualized. But what we don't know is what features or what types of diversity are most important here. So this World2Vec was built for very different purposes, and it collapses everything we know about 3 billion people together. And then it's just like fancy math evaluating the similarity of vectors. So are all of those things equally important? Probably not, but we don't know. All right, so thank you.